Tensions in the Middle East have reached a new and dangerous level after dramatic claims began circulating about a massive aerial bombardment targeting Iran's missile infrastructure. According to multiple sources and regional reports, U.S. forces are said to have carried out a large-scale strike using long-range bombers, hitting multiple missile depot sites deep inside Iranian territory. The reported operation is being described as one of the most intense and coordinated bombing campaigns seen in the region in recent times. According to these reports, the strikes were aimed at critical missile storage locations believed to be part of Iran's strategic arsenal. These sites, often positioned in fortified areas and sometimes connected to underground facilities, were considered key components of Iran's military capability. The scale of the reported attack suggests a deliberate effort to cause maximum disruption and destruction across multiple locations simultaneously. Before we break down how this massive bombing operation unfolded, the destruction reported across these missile depots, and what this could mean for the escalating situation, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the latest developments shaping global conflicts and geopolitical events. According to sources monitoring the situation, the operation began under conditions designed to minimize detection. The aircraft reportedly approached their targets during hours when visibility was limited, taking advantage of the darkness to carry out a coordinated strike. As the operation moved into its final phase, the targets were identified, and within moments, the first wave of bombs was released. What followed was a series of powerful explosions across multiple locations. Witness accounts and monitoring reports describe massive blasts erupting at missile depot sites, with shockwaves spreading across surrounding areas. The force of the explosions was reportedly strong enough to be felt kilometers away, sending vibrations through the ground and causing nearby structures to shake. In some areas, the explosions triggered secondary detonations. Missile storage facilities, by their nature, contain highly volatile materials. According to reports, once the initial strikes hit their targets, additional explosions followed as stored munitions ignited. These secondary blasts intensified the destruction, creating a chain reaction that extended beyond the initial impact zones. Flames quickly spread across affected areas. Large fireballs were reportedly seen rising into the night sky, followed by thick plumes of smoke that continued to expand for hours after the strikes. The fires, fueled by stored materials, burned intensely, making it difficult for response teams to approach certain locations. According to sources, some of the targeted depots were connected to underground storage areas. In such cases, the explosions did not remain confined to the surface. Instead, they extended into subterranean sections, causing internal collapses and structural damage below ground level. This added another layer of destruction as tunnels, storage chambers, and reinforced sections were affected. The scale of the damage appears to have been significant. Reports indicate that multiple facilities experienced extensive destruction, with large sections either damaged or completely destroyed. In some areas, structures that once housed equipment and materials were reduced to debris, with only fragments remaining visible. The intensity of the explosions also had an impact beyond the immediate targets. Nearby infrastructure, including roads and surrounding buildings, showed signs of damage. Windows shattered, surfaces cracked, and debris was scattered across a wide radius. The force of the blasts created a ripple effect, extending the impact beyond the initial strike zones. As the bombing continued, additional waves of explosions were reported. This suggests that the operation may have involved multiple strike phases, each targeting different sections of the missile depots or separate locations entirely. The timing of these explosions created a sustained period of destruction rather than a single isolated event. Emergency response efforts were complicated by the ongoing situation. According to sources, responders faced significant challenges due to the intensity of the fires, the risk of further detonations, and the widespread nature of the damage. In some cases, access to affected areas was limited due to debris, unstable structures, and the possibility of additional explosion. The psychological impact of the strikes was also considerable. Residents in nearby areas reported hearing multiple explosions over an extended period, with each blast adding to the sense of uncertainty. The combination of shockwaves, visible fires, and ongoing detonations created an atmosphere of tension and concern. According to reports, the strikes were described as a targeted effort to disrupt missile-related capabilities. However, the immediate focus on the ground remained on the visible destruction. The combination of initial impacts and secondary explosions created scenes of significant damage, with fires continuing to burn and smoke rising long after the bombing had ended. Observers note that strikes on missile depots can have particularly intense effects due to the materials stored within these facilities. Once ignited, these materials can contribute to prolonged fires and repeated explosions, amplifying the overall impact. This appears to have been the case in the reported strikes, where initial impacts were followed by additional detonations. As more details emerge, assessments of the damage continue. According to sources, the full extent of the destruction may not yet be fully understood, as some areas remain difficult to access and evaluate. However, early reports suggest that multiple sites experienced significant damage, with some facilities heavily impacted. The broader implications of such an operation are now being closely analyzed. Large-scale bombing campaigns targeting critical infrastructure represent a significant escalation in any conflict. They demonstrate both capability and intent, sending a clear signal about the level of engagement. At the same time, they raise questions about what may come next. Because in situations like this, actions often lead to reactions. The reported strikes have added another layer to an already complex and evolving situation. Each development increases uncertainty and raises the stakes for all parties involved. For now, the focus remains on the aftermath. Fires continue to burn in affected areas. Damage assessments are ongoing, and the full impact of the strikes is still being evaluated. But one thing is already clear. The scale and intensity of the reported bombing have created a moment that could influence what comes next. Because events like this do not occur in isolation. They are part of a larger sequence, a sequence that continues to unfold. And as the situation develops, the world is watching closely, waiting for clarity, waiting for responses, and waiting to see how this latest escalation will shape the future. Because in conflicts like this, moments of intense action often become turning points. And what happens next may define the path forward in ways that are difficult to predict. And as the situation continues to unfold, attention is now turning toward the deeper layers of destruction caused by the strikes, particularly in areas where the initial explosions triggered extended damage over time. According to sources, some of the most intense destruction was not limited to the moment of impact, but continued long after the bombs had hit their targets. Fires spread through storage zones, igniting additional materials and causing prolonged burn cycles that made containment extremely difficult. In several locations, reports suggest that the heat generated by the explosions and subsequent fires reached levels capable of weakening surrounding structures. This resulted in partial collapses of facilities that may not have been directly hit, but were affected by the intensity of nearby blasts. Walls cracked, support systems gave way, and sections of buildings reportedly collapsed under the pressure of sustained heat and shockwaves. These cascading effects added to the overall scale of destruction, turning localized strikes into widespread damage zones. Another major concern, according to observers, has been the possibility of delayed detonations. Missile depots often contain a variety of stored materials, some of which may not ignite immediately. In the aftermath of the initial strikes, these materials can become unstable, leading to additional explosions minutes or even hours later. Reports indicate that such delayed blasts were observed in certain areas, further complicating response efforts and prolonging the period of danger. Emergency crews working in the aftermath faced extremely hazardous conditions. According to sources, responders had to navigate areas filled with debris, active fires, and the constant risk of further explosions. In some cases, access to affected sites was delayed due to safety concerns, as teams waited for conditions to stabilize before moving in. This delay, while necessary, also meant that fires were allowed to burn longer, increasing the extent of damage. The visual impact of the strikes has also been significant. Large plumes of smoke reportedly rose high into the sky, visible from considerable distances. These smoke columns, combined with ongoing fires, created a scene that underscored the scale of the destruction. In some areas, the smoke lingered for extended periods, indicating that materials continued to burn long after the initial explosions. According to reports, the noise of the blasts and subsequent detonations was heard across wide areas, contributing to the psychological impact of the event. For those in nearby regions, the experience was not limited to a single moment, but extended over time as additional explosions occurred. This prolonged exposure to the effects of the strikes added to the sense of uncertainty and tension. From an operational perspective, the strikes appear to have been designed to create maximum disruption within a short period. By targeting multiple locations and triggering secondary explosions, the overall impact was amplified. Instead of a single event, the strikes became a series of destructive moments, each contributing to the cumulative effect. At the same time, analysts are examining how such an operation fits into the broader context of the conflict. Large-scale strikes on infrastructure of this type are often intended to send a message, not only through the immediate damage, but also through the demonstration of reach and capability. The ability to carry out coordinated strikes across multiple locations suggests a level of planning and execution that carries strategic implications. However, beyond the strategic analysis, the immediate reality remains focused on the aftermath. According to sources, efforts to assess the full extent of the damage are ongoing, with teams working to evaluate the condition of affected sites. This process is expected to take time, particularly in areas where access remains limited due to safety concerns.